detoxification, setting up the groundwork, making sure minerals are established. That's where you begin. And then functional testing. I mean, can you imagine doing any of this work without looking deeper with functional testing?
Yeah, it's so key. And I mean, you can go on gut healing protocols, you can go on cleanses, but the wonderful thing about looking at tests is that it gives us a whole picture.
My next guest on Stronger Bones Lifestyle podcast is Chelsie Ward. She has been a student of the human mind and body for over 20 years. She has a background in applied behavioral analysis. She is a registered nurse and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She is also a spiritual healer. She works with driven women who are tired of trying to figure out digestive issues and hormone imbalances on their own and supports them with a personalized plan so they can love themselves and feel good in their own skin. She is the author of Healed His Way, where she shares natural healing techniques that have been used by many others so they can experience health the way it was intended. Chelsie, welcome to Stronger Bones Lifestyle Podcast. We are so looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
I'm so honored to be here with you today.
Great. Okay, so let's begin. I asked you to be on here because you're an FDN like I am. We run functional labs to look deeper at many different aspects. And I love what you focus on, which is the gut and detoxing. And really, some of what you were saying on your website was upgrading habits and lifestyle. And I love that because I always say we have to make lifestyle changes and shifts, but the upgrading is like, who doesn't want to be better? Who doesn't want to better themselves on some level? So could you just start with your why, who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, and then what it is that you're doing?
Debbie, I really started to become passionate about gut health after my own healing journey. So I was born with colic. I was getting suppositories on a regular basis from my grandmother, had digestive issues my entire life. I was that chronic candida sufferer. My dad was always throwing the next diet or cleanse or book or something else at me. I was taking a ton of supplements. I was a sugar junkie. I had, hormone imbalances on top of that, but I think a lot of that was driven from poor gut health. And I went into nursing school thinking, well, maybe I can help other people with their health. Since I'm not going to have mine, then maybe I can really help other people learn to heal and get better. And I just had a heart for people who were sick. And so nursing school taught me what I didn't want in life. And I realized then that I was really a lot like my sick patients. We were actually living the same life and being told surgery and medication is your way out. And I started at that time studying how food is medicine and how our bodies are actually created to heal themselves if we give them what they need. And that's really what took me on my own journey. And during that time, I healed my body after 30 years of suffering with chronic IBS, depression, hormone imbalances, all driven from parasitic infections, candida infections, bacterial overgrowth. And I didn't realize at the time that I was really experiencing all these symptoms, that I had such complex issues that my medical doctors didn't really investigate. So as I started to learn a little bit more about those things on my own and realized all I had to do was work with the body to help it heal, then healing began as a side effect for me. And right now I'm living healthier than I've ever lived in my life. And it's because of the upgrade that you're talking about, just choosing those small steps that made really, really big progress for me personally. And I've created a doable way, for others to kind of fall in that footstep. And I think that's so important because so many times we don't make the progress because we don't know how. And that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing today, because I know the power in just really nurturing and nourishing the body back to health. And that's what I love to teach others to do.
Yeah, and it's such a holistic approach, and that's part of what you do as well as an RN, as an FDN, as a spiritual leader, is really understanding that we are a total mind body unit. And in order to tap into that deep innate healing, it has to be all parts of us. And so, yeah, it's really, I love that approach. And I know that what I find with women that I work with, and you might find this, I'm sure, because part of your when I was reading on your website, people are taking shots at the dark in the dark, right? They're trying to self-heal and they're saying, maybe I need to take this and maybe I need to take this. And oh, there's this latest gut this, or there's this thing. And oh, berberine, I've heard berberine is great. And yes, a lot of these things are good, but it's not just in isolation. And then, like what you were saying too, you had every diet book, you were exposed to a lot. Then when you got to the point where you realized what's going on underneath and what are the blocks or the hurdles that get in the way that you need to remove. And I'm wondering, is that part of like, because I know you place such an emphasis on detoxification, right? So
Yeah.
I think of that. So can you like, that's what because I know that in my conversations with you, I know that that's where you begin, or I believe that's where you begin in a lot of what you do.
Yeah. It is absolutely where, and I believe it's because the body has a hierarchy. And if we respect that hierarchy, then that's when we begin to heal. And you've seen this so many times. You're absolutely right that people come and they're doing amazing things. I like to call these women self-healers, right? Because they're doing so much homework. They're studying all the latest things that they can get their hands on. They're reading all the healing books, and there's so much information that's available to us. And I think we all make the same mistake. I made the same mistake on my journey. And that was, oh, L-glutamine's great for the gut. Let me take that and it'll my or, oh, I have candida. Oregano might help my candida. So I'm going to take loads and loads of oregano. What we don't realize is that one, there is an order. There is an order in all things, even in nature, there's order, right? And if we follow that order, then that's when we can really begin to heal. And one thing I realized on my own healing journey is that detox was a huge missing piece of the puzzle. And I was putting a lot of things in, getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I thought, how am I taking all these supplements and I'm getting sicker? How am I trying to change my diet, but I'm getting sicker? And it's one, because I had been so sick for so long. And I find this with so many women. You've been sick for so long that you are just, your tissues are sick, your cells are sick, everything is sick on just a cellular level. So much so that when you start putting in a lot of these healing herbs, it actually sends the body into a crisis. And if we open up those detox pathways and we open up the channels so that the body can actually begin to heal, then it will. So we can't release toxins until we open up the drainage systems in the body to do so. And the body's super intelligent. It'll do a lot of this on its own, but it can really use a little bit of help through herbs and different, sweating, different detox, even like a detox bath can be helpful to help open up some of those sweat pathways, skin brushing, getting in the sauna, really focusing in on the different phases of detox. So you've probably heard of like the over-the-counter drinks and detoxes and juice cleanses and all the things. And we had all that. And the problem is that the body requires us to have certain vitamins, minerals, amino acids, nutrients on board for us to even go through a full true detox. So if we don't have those things in our system, we're not taking those things in on a regular basis in our diet, then a lot of these drainage pathways, they just become more and more blocked. So that's one of the areas I focus on first, is because a lot of times inflammation can't even leave the body because it's toxic, right? A lot of body fat because their body's holding on to those toxins. So it's kind of like working from the bottom of that funnel and letting that drainage system open, like the bathtub has a drain, right? When we pull the drain, then the water begins to leave the bathtub. And it's the same thing with the system. When we get the right herbs and supplements and nutrition and all the right lifestyle choices in the right order, and we start using those from that foundational level, that's kind of like pulling that plug on the bathtub. Then the toxins and those things can begin to leave the system. Now, that doesn't clean up pathogens like parasites and bacteria and fungus and all those different things in the system. But what it does is cleans out a lot of the toxins so that we can then target a lot of the things that are making us sick long term.
Yeah, and those symptoms, those Herxheimer reactions, it's always so interesting to me that you start to heal and you go into a healing protocol, but you feel horrible. Like sometimes for 3 days, you feel like you have the flu. And you were speaking about the hierarchy of healing and how we have to have that mineral balance. In my program, Healthy Gut, Healthy Bones, I have mineral balance is a big part of it because the bones are the bank for our minerals. And so because I specialize in bone health, part of osteoporosis is that's why you're losing bones because of all these other issues, whether it's toxicity or all the other root causes. And so in order to even establish the start line, to get even to the start line of healing, you have to have the groundwork like you're saying before. And then once you do that and you set yourself up for success, then you start to go into that, and then you start to lose weight and you start to get more energy. And what were you calling the ladies, the self healers, the ones that are really good about doing all the great
Yeah.
stuff? What's interesting about the self
Mhm.
healers, and you probably find this too, there's women that don't seem super symptomatic. Like, they say, I don't have symptoms. And I said, well, osteoporosis is a pretty big symptom. So I'm going to say that that's a pretty big symptom. But, and then you run a stool test and you're like, oh my gosh, candida shows up in a stool test, which it shouldn't, right? It's not a real sensitive test for that. So it's bad if it's in a stool. But the women that are self-healers are able, I think, to kind of stay afloat a little bit, not really deal. Sometimes they can feel not super great. They're not 100%, but they can kind of stay afloat. And then once they start to heal and they get close to that 90 to 100% of feeling great, it's like, wow. So this is what it feels like to be healthy.
Yeah. And I think women are so many women are just driven to take care of what is around them, take care of the people around them, their job, their career, their home, whatever it is that they need to do. If they're volunteering, I mean, women are just constantly going and not focusing on themselves. And you and I probably work with women, and we're in a similar age range. I typically am working with women from 35 to 65. I imagine your population is very similar, and is somewhere in this timeline that we really find that women are sometimes stepping back because their kids are leaving the home. Maybe they're ending a career or something is changing to where they're like, wait a minute, I've never really focused on myself. Or symptoms are so strong at this point, or they receive some sort of diagnosis, and maybe it is osteoporosis, and they've received that, and it's like, wait a minute, how did this happen? Because we busy ourselves so much, we just go on with life so much so that we don't really pay attention to the symptoms. And I have a woman that was exactly in that place. I'm actually meeting with her later today, but we found parasites. We did testing, we did all the things, and when she filled out her intake form, I thought, why is she here? Like, I really thought she was just not able to lose weight. She was in menopausal years, and I thought, okay, well, we're going to help her lose a little bit of weight. And then we start testing, and she does, a cleanse on her gut, and she starts passing liver flukes in her stool, and it's like, and liver fluke, we're talking about little parasites, protozoa, those types of things, a lot of times may or may not show up on stool tests. But when we start cleansing other types of gut pathogens, we'll start to see things come out in the stool. And it's amazing that, to me, it just shows how strong women can be, because we are going on with life. And she had no idea she had this major hiccup in her system, that was causing her to hold on to weight, to not have any energy, to even have those hot flashes and menopausal symptoms be worse, because of this little infection that she had in her body. So
Yeah. So,
it's
okay. So
amazing.
detoxification, setting up the groundwork, making sure minerals are established. That's where you begin. And then functional testing. I mean, can you imagine doing any of this work without looking deeper with functional testing?
Yeah, it's so key. And I mean, you can go on gut healing protocols, you can go on cleanses, but the wonderful thing about looking at tests is that it gives us a whole picture. And what I love about the FDN work is, like, we're looking at a full intake and assessment and kind of a history, like what's been going on your entire life and who are you on paper and black and white. But we're also pairing that with what we see on these lab tests. And I think it creates a really unique picture. So we can see, like, the entire story of a person laid out. And so many times I think that it just differs from the way that we practice or the way that traditional medicine works. So many times they're looking at a lab range and they're like, oh, it's out of range, we're going to plug a hole. And I love the work of functional medicine because it's more like that holistic approach. It's looking at their history. What have you been doing in your life, your career? What have you been exposed to? We may have people working in the automotive industry, right? So that's going to create toxin levels in their body that are different from someone who's been working, as a stay-at-home mom, right? So we are able to test those things. We're able to look at toxins in the body. We're able to look at mold. We're able to look at people's mineral levels, vitamin levels. We can look at a stool test to look at the entire health of the gut, looking for parasites, bacteria, fungus, like you said, candida, yeast infections, those types of things. But we're also looking at the health of the intestinal lining. And, are we digesting our proteins appropriately? Are we digesting our fats appropriately? Because if we're not digesting appropriately, then we're not absorbing our nutrients, which is going to be what causes a lot of this mineral imbalance, right? So when we can see the whole picture like that in a test, it's like we can start plugging in and saying, okay, we may never say this is the root cause, but we can start really painting a picture that says, okay, we really need to focus in on nutrition. We really need to focus in on detox and really dive deeper into detox for this one individual. And maybe detox is more surface level on someone else, and we don't necessarily have to dive as deep. And then we may find bacterial overgrowth in one person where someone else may have parasites. So we're looking at similar tests for a lot of people, but we're able to paint that really clear picture about what may or may not be causing some of the things and just start looking for those healing opportunities so that we can start peeling back the layers of the onion so someone can really heal.
Yeah, and you came from conventional medicine as a registered nurse. And, conventional medicine is looking for disease because we have a medication for the disease. That's the training. It just is what we do here in the West. It's the way that our doctors are trained in school. It's what we do. We look for disease. The markers on the labs are, is it in a disease state? But what we look for is dysfunction. And are you in the dysfunction state and getting back to function so you never even get to the disease state? And so, yes, doing that complete analysis, because it's not just here's the lab, you've got a parasite. It's the person and what are they doing, and the mind, the body, it's all of it. So, yeah, like the real true transformative deep healing, in my experience, does take place for those who run labs. And it's worth the investment of time, of money, of all of the upgrading of lifestyle and habits that takes place, because it is how you could be the healthiest version of yourself. Okay, so a little bit about gut. What is it so you talked about detox, we talked about testing to find out things. We run similar labs in the work that we do. The stool test, I think, is just so fantastic on all the information. So let's talk about gut health, because I know that's a big thing for you too.
I love the gut. It's just, it's so beautiful. It is like so not fun for most people, but it's just, to me, it is a way to really kind of work on foundational healing, like from a foundational level, because there's typically something going on with the gut in most of the people we see, right? Whether that be from a nutrition standpoint, they're not eating the right foods, or whether they've been on medicines, herbicides and pesticides in their food, toxins from their environment, those types of things. That is all going to cause symptoms like leaky gut. And then leaky gut can lead to things like food sensitivities, autoimmunity, right? Where there's food proteins that are actually leaking out of our digestive system where they should be housed. They're leaking into the system and into circulation where they don't belong. The body begins to elicit an immune response. So this is, in 80% of your immune system is found inside the gut. So we're talking about, if your gut is compromised, then you're talking about allergies, you're talking about chronic infections. Now you've got those proteins potentially spilling into the blood system. People are getting bloated. A lot of times people will come and they'll say, hey, I'm bloated with everything that I eat. to me, that's a really big red flag that we have leaky gut going on, right? Because the system is basically kind of screwing and saying, okay, I'm trying to hold everything together. I'm trying to keep this food in. I'm trying to give you warning signs that there's something going on. And what I really like to do is work more, like we talked about the high. So from that foundational level, really working on inflammation and reducing inflammation in the body. And I do that through using food, kind of food as medicine protocol, just getting down to the bare bones nutrition, meat, fruit, vegetables, and we're talking bare bones. And I think what happens at that point is people really begin to heal because we're removing a lot of those inflammatory foods, gluten, dairy, sugar, soy, alcohol, all of this hydrogenated trans fats, those types of things that are so inflammatory to our system. Just by decreasing that inflammation, people start feeling better automatically. And then after that, we can really start to target things in the system that are making us sick. And we talked about some of those things, like the bacteria, the parasites, all of those things. Those bugs actually have a hierarchy as well. So, and I think this is why we miss it so many times when sometimes a woman may come and they're saying, I'm getting chronic yeast infections. We think, oh, candida, that must be the problem. Well, the thing is if we have parasites, which was true in my story, then we're never going to get rid of candida because parasites are a bigger pathogen in this hierarchy, right? They are fueling the system. And candida, they're kind of like that little opportunistic. If you think about the shark coming in and the little feeders behind them, the feeders, they're back there because the shark is they have droppings, they're attracting things that the little fish can actually kind of go behind and eat. And that's exactly what's happening inside of our gut. We have the parasites, which are kind of the big sharks, and then we have the yeast or the fungus or the candida, you want to call it. They're kind of those feeders that are like, they're in the right environment. The pH is perfect for them to, live in. We're feeding them on a regular basis. They're sending signals to the brain. So we're craving sugar. We're doing all those things. We think our brain is causing us to crave sugar when so much signal to the brain asking to be fed so that they can live. So there's just this really unique thing going on inside of us that I think so many times we can feel like we're out of control. And the truth is because we kind of are. The gut can drive so much of these like mind responses. And then, when we work and we start working on these guys, you talked about, the healing crisis and things like that. And the goal really here is to go slow. I think we think, oh, we found the answer. Now we have parasites and we're just going to heal them. And the goal really is to go low and slow to start so that we can really start moving the needle. And then, it may take a couple months to really heal these guys once we get in there and start doing the work. And I think so many times where we miss it with gut healing, and this is an area that I'm really, really focused in on lately, and that is stomach acid. Because of the environment of the gut and what we do when we're eating a standard or just a lot of processed foods, or we have a lot of toxins coming in, or simply as we age, our stomach acid will decrease. And one of the things that I've trained my clients to do on a regular basis is to check their stomach acid through a simple at-home test.
Wait, so
and we can
again?
make sure that
it kind of cut out. Check their what?
Yeah. So we check their stomach acid with a simple at-home test. And then we are able to really teach them a system to be able to do that on a regular basis, just to make sure that the levels are sufficient. If we create an environment inside of our gut that these pathogens don't want to live in, then what happens when we have a piece of sushi and we're exposed to parasites is that it goes through the system and it doesn't really affect us, right? But if we have low stomach acid and we're eating that standard American diet again, or we've stopped eating our probiotic rich foods, those types of things, in the end, then we're creating an environment that these pathogens want to live in. So the idea of increasing stomach acid and improving the environment is really just creating the environment that it's like, I know if I drive through a bad neighborhood, I don't want to stay there. It's not my people. It's not, there's nothing there for me. So I'm going to keep going through. But if I see something there that makes me stop, then I'm going to stop, right? And these pathogens are the same way. I'm drive through our neighborhood and they're going to say, oh, that acid is a little too much for me, or she doesn't have anything in here for me to eat on. So they're going to pass right through, and we're going to, the body really is doing its job. And that's our goal at the end of the day, is to get our body to actually work for us instead of us working against it.
Yeah. So I always tell people that the gut is the outside world. From mouth to anus, it's a closed tube. It's the outside world. And the mucosal barrier is your fortress. And if you think about a castle, for me, because it's bones, I think about that center structure, my castle, my skeleton, and then this whole fortress around. And you want to make sure that that's maintained, right? So we don't have leaky gut. But what you're also speaking about here, so that's one thing I want to say. But the other thing is this whole environment aspect and making sure that starting, right? So really it starts in the mind. What are you choosing to eat? Then it starts with mastication, because some of the digestive enzymes are secreted in the mouth. And so saliva to create that soupy aspect that will help things get digested in the stomach. And you've used this word environment quite a few times here. And that is what happens, this outside world. If we have these environments along the way, along this closed system, that's where the growth, the overgrowth, or the growth takes place. And so we call it biofilm in the work that we do when we start to like remove some of those neighborhoods. But that's the thing, you're trying to create the environment of health. So when you're upgrading, back to how I love that terminology, upgrading the lifestyle, upgrading the habits, is you don't want to create the environment in the first place for these bugs to grow, because then it wreaks havoc on everything. So creating the perfect environment, gut environment, is, yeah, really important.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people say, when we talk, am I going to have to take these supplements forever? Like, am I going to have to work on my gut forever? Like, is this a forever thing? And I think this goes back to the world of traditional medicine, right? You have high blood pressure, so you take the blood pressure pill forever. And the truth is that we can correct these issues. We can even correct blood pressure. I'm not saying that we can't, but we can correct the gut issues so that we don't have to really depend on these heavy supplements for a long time. So really with the gut, it's kind of a means to an end. But then we train our clients to say, okay, is detox important to the system? Yes, because we live in a toxic world. We're never going to get rid of toxins altogether. So having the skill to detox, that's going to be in your arsenal the rest of your life. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, you're going to know when your body's saying, I would like to do a detox, or you're going to know how to implement that even on a day-to-day basis with some of the tools that you use, and just keep those things in your arsenal long term. The same thing with building stomach acid. You learn the skill set, and then you test your stomach acid on figure out, okay, well, I need to do something to improve my stomach acid. Or you start including foods like raw ginger on a regular basis, or apple cider vinegar on a regular basis. Foods that are bitter in taste, those are actually going to improve stomach acid over time, right? So it's really just learning the skill set in the end. And it doesn't mean you're going to have to supplement with loads of supplements the rest of your life, but it's really knowing which tools to bring in. And that's something that you learn in these longer programs that we've built, so that you can get an idea about this being your long-term plan, not just, oh, I'm going to go see Debbie, or I'm going to go see Chelsie to fix this one. Create for you a long-term plan so that you can heal and be in health long-term.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. This is not just a
Yeah.
small thing. And exactly what you said, in the beginning, you do need supplements, and gut healing it depends what's going on in there. It could take 6 months, it could take a year, or you might start right away healing. And so bringing in the supplements, some of them are necessary because that environment that exists for them to live, the pathogens, the yeast, the bacterial overgrowth, the environment needs to be disrupted. And that might take some time, and it might take some natural botanical herbs to help disrupt that, and then to rebuild a new environment for health. And so there's that. And then, like you said, then we go into, that's always my thing, is I want to find the most natural protocols for someone to move into, the lifestyle aspect, and thinking about civilization and humankind, and how, if you look at many different cultures around the world, they have digestive support. There's a lot of, like, I always say we forgot how to be healthy because, now we've introduced like convenience and processed things and crappy oils and all that. But before, we used to eat in harmony with nature. And I know, like, in Persian food, there's parsley sitting at the table with radishes that you could eat with cheese and bread, which, we say no dairy, no gluten, but there's radishes and parsley. Well, that's going to actually start to stimulate digestion. Or in some of these Northern European countries that have the fermented veggies that are a part of meals, or even yogurts in a lot of cultures, or beverages, or in Ayurveda, in India, they don't drink water or liquid with their meal because they don't want to dilute their gastric juices. Or you sit down, or you're with people, or you chew a lot, or you walk after a meal. And so, exactly, there's a lifestyle to having a healthy gut. Yet you need to start with functional labs to find out what's the neighborhood, what are the overgrowths, what are you up against? Are your systems that manage this in place, which the detoxification aspects, and then, in your journey, who knows how long your journey will be, but eventually your journey can be as natural as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sometimes it's the nutrition piece is because of the world of convenience that we live in, right? Even even something as simple as meat, fruit, and vegetables, if you get down to the foundation, that can be so stressful for someone because it's not what we're used to. And we have fast food, we have our protein bars, we have some people are eating crackers, as a lunch. And especially, from the medical field, I can tell you that we didn't take breaks, we didn't do anything. And the idea behind nutrition is really getting the most nutrient dense foods possible in your body and thinking about food as a messenger to your cells. So your cells are looking for something to take in so that they can thrive and give you life. Your cells make up your tissues, they make up your organs, they make up the health of your tissues and organs. And if we can bring in things that actually feed those cells, that's what food was created for. It doesn't matter if it's meat, plants, like all those things matter. And if you're bringing in other things that we've just conveniently human beings, especially now that we've introduced genetically modified foods and all of those things, you're really not giving your body anything to work with because it's almost like the cells cannot interpret the signal that's coming in. That message is skewed. The body is like, wait a minute, I understand that you're filling a hole, like that hunger, yes, that spot, that food needs to go into, you're filling that place, but there's nothing coming in that's giving me any signal that I need to do anything particular to help you run and operate this piece of machine. I'm so intelligent because I'm sitting here thinking, like, how does this body that requires food and nutrition and all these things to run, how does it even run on a McDonald's hamburger? Like, how does it even run on a pack of crackers? Like, but it will take it and it will use it as good as it possibly can. The problem is in return, we get disease. And, a lot of people ask, well, do I have to eat organic? Well, organic is the original food. Organic is unaltered food, right? It's not sprayed with the chemicals, the herbicides, the pesticides, all the things. It's not genetically modified, and it is the original food. So you want to think about that when you're picking your foods. Like, go back to as original as you possibly can. What are our ancestors doing? What were they doing? They were feeding, like you said, they were feeding the good, healthy gut bacteria. That can be through fermented foods and fermented beverages, but just taking in good, clean vegetables. We're actually using those fibers from those vegetables to feed the good, healthy bacteria. So the nutrition is a part of the healing protocol. And I think so many times we're in this world of convenience. It's just like, I'm throwing my hands in the air. I just want a pill. Just give me the supplements. Can I just take the supplements and continue my diet the same exact way that it is? And the short answer is absolutely not. You will not, you'll get a decent amount of the way. You will probably even feel a little bit better. And so many times people's symptoms won't go away unless they're removing the inflammatory foods, but you're still not shifting the environment if you don't shift your diet. And your diet long term is what's going to keep the environment healthy. It's going to keep the good, healthy bacteria. It's going to keep the pH of your gut balanced, and it's going to be what prevents all these pathogens from coming in. It's going to keep your energy up, right? So if you're living on dead food expecting it to give you life, then just think about that. Your dead food does not give life. Life-giving food is what gives you life and gives you energy and makes your cells vibrant. You can even look at living food and you can see the life in it. If you just put a piece of bread on a table and you put some fresh carrots picked out of your garden, see the difference. You can see the life in it. It's the ground versus when it's been through this manufacturing process to turn it into this big brown block, you know. And so those are really just some visuals to help as you start to consume your next meal. You know, does this look like a life-giving meal? Does this look like dead food? I mean, am I eating peanut butter and jelly that looks dead? Or am I eating a good, beautiful salad with chicken and lots of color and a beautiful homemade dressing or whatever you put on it? You know, what is the most life-giving? And you can literally see it.
Yeah. And so in the work that I do with osteoporosis, I get women to really think of when they're looking at the food, is this going to build my bones or dissolve my bones? Building,
Mm.
dissolving, building, dissolving. And even for myself. And, you know, if you don't manage blood sugar regulation, if you don't, if you're not aware of your diet and how important that is and look at it as information and as the building blocks of every aspect of your body, your cells, your tissues, your energy, your hormones. If you don't look at it that way, and if you don't eat appropriately and you let your blood sugar get out of control, those crazy cravings come in. It's hard to make good choices. And if you have dysbiosis or yeast overgrowth, it's actually the yeast that's actually craving the sugar or the pastries. It's not really you. It's that environment, the shark and the feeders that want that. So if you are in front of your food, and for me with the bones, I think of this, and it could be any tissue really, but dissolving with bones is really what's happening. Bones build and they dissolve. Those are like the two mechanisms for bones. So building, dissolving, building, dissolving. And when you look at the food, you're really able to bring this layer of intelligence, this present moment. You actually come to the cortical brain, the prefrontal cortical brain, where you can intelligently make a choice and back away from the limbic loop and the part of you that's driving you to eat or eat that sugar, eat that pastry. Building, dissolving, it's so helpful. And women, I think that's probably what people have said to me the most over the years. One of the big standouts of what I've shared is that. And for me, I do that. I open the refrigerator, and yeah, even if there was something there like, ooh, that could be good, it's like, wait, that doesn't build, that dissolves. So, yeah, having a little mantra or a little thing you say to yourself when you're going to eat and really thinking about that place of love and taking care of yourself can be helpful, because nutrition and diet, Chelsie, is really, as you know, it is critical to health for the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard to make those shifts. It's hard not to drive into McDonald's or get something that, a Big Mac that has what, like maybe 40 ingredients. And if you're at home in your kitchen and you want to eat now, how quickly can you put together something? And if you have, the 40 ingredient Big Mac there, and then you have your refrigerator and you're like, ugh. But, I think you probably feel this way, or I'm not sure like what your diet was like before, but I have changed my taste buds. And I used to be a
Yeah.
gourmet cook. I've gone to professional cooking school. I'm known in my community as being this like major gourmet cook, creme brulee, filet mignons with red wine reduction sauce and roasted mushrooms. And I mean, I just could really cook. I don't do that anymore. Like I can't even, people ask me to make something fancy. I'm like, I can't, because all that fancy, all that gourmet is not healthy, most of it. It's all about simple and simple ingredients and natural and nature.
Yeah. I think where we mess up a lot of times too is like I came from a world where I had been dealing with digestive issues for 30 years. So, of course, we're talking about the cravings and the yeast and all those things, and they're driving all of these things. I was eating one of those big, huge birthday cake cookies. I could devour that in 24 hours. I mean, this is one of those big shared birthday cake cookies. Okay. I was buying a 4 pound brownie from Sam's many years ago, and that was a staple in my home. So I was literally feeding, and I would go through pints and pints of ice cream per week. I would go to the grocery store probably 3 times per week just to get a big thing of Edie's ice cream. Okay, so I tell you that if I can overcome these sugar cravings, then anyone in the world can. It was a nightmare. And I do love my sweets, but they're more under control today because I use healthier ingredients and I make sure that I'm using whole foods, or I use a lot of eggs and kind of I do things baking with eggs, or I do a lot of fruit based, like a sorbet that has and maybe a little bit of maple syrup, something like that. You can still have enjoyable things and really feed your sweet palate, but it can be with good, healthy, nutritious foods. And I think where I missed it so many times, and where so many of my clients want to miss it as well, is they're still trying to feed that old taste bud. And they're reaching for, oh, well, I'm eating Oreo cookies, so maybe organic Oreo cookies would be better, or organic, not, I don't even know if Oreo has an organic brand, but organic sandwich cookies, right? They would be better. Or I'm buying ice cream for a raw dairy, something like that. Like they're trying to make this one for one replacement. One, you're getting into some really big expense because you're going to pay 3 times the price for swap. Number two, you are really not moving more toward like that cellular healing that we're talking about, right? Because you're still feeding sugar, you're still feeding the bacteria, you're still feeding that overgrowth, you're feeding the dopamine response, you're feeding the craving, and you will never shift your palate that way. And that's one of the reasons I do start with a detox. And the detox includes both nutrition and the detox type supplements that are going to help your body really get rid of the toxins. Because most people say within a 10-day period that I typically do a detox, they are completely craving free, no cravings. And we're using like nutrition, like greens powders, things like a lot of nutrition in, because that's going to help the cravings. And when you start feeding your body a lot of nutrition, like I'll use a greens powder that has like 25 servings of fruits and vegetables, and we're doing this multiple times per day. So if you're getting that much nutrition in, your body's going to start asking, they're like, I'm craving apples, or I'm craving like celery, or things. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not tasting it in a shake or whatever you're having, but your body is getting the signal that that's what you're receiving as far as the food. This is a whole food broken down into a powder. It tastes a little bit better, than most things, that you would just consume as far as like loads and loads of vegetables. And it would take you a long time to eat that many vegetables, but your body's still getting the same signal. And that's really key. Is sometimes it's using things like that to really almost trick the system to make that switch and to help you start craving those healthier things. And it's just another tool in your toolkit that you have to really shift when you feel like you're kind of falling off, or you can use it forever to help balance your nutrition.
Yeah, that's what I noticed with women I work with. They come to me, a lot of the women I work with osteoporosis they eat a lot of sugar, and
Mm-hmm.
either sugar in its form or in the form of breads or pastries. And that's one of the things that a lot of them notice is they no longer have those cravings. So whether it's the management of some of the dysbiosis that we're managing, or even just making that shift of your body not wanting all of that, and really craving the building blocks of tissue and being like, wow, wait, I work better this way. So yeah, that's one of the things I really notice. And that's one of the my check-in sessions. It's like, wow, I'm not, my cravings have minimized. And that's good because then it makes it easier to upgrade the lifestyle and the habits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, Chelsie, this has been really informative. I love detoxification, gut, nutrition, all of this, whether or it's you're focusing on hormone balance as you do. For me, I focus on healthy aging, healthy bones. It's all so important for women, and just putting it together. I think you have to be a part of a program and or run functional labs. There are, entry level ways to get into this, but when you want a true transformation, it really does help to work with someone like you, someone like me. So how can the ladies listening, because a lot of ladies are really loving all the information that's shared, give us some of the ways that they could find you, work with you, some of the programs you offer?
So I'm available on most social media channels, and my website is Chelsie Ward. So it's chelsieward.com for my website, Chelsie Ward Wellness on pretty much every platform, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the things. And my programs are called Go With Your Gut. So gut health is a really big foundation of what we do. And we use functional lab testing, just like some of the things we've talked about today, detox nutrition, look deeper into hormone health, really to just help you feel like your best self, and optimize from every level. So I have information on programs on my website about the different levels that we offer. And the best thing to do is really schedule some time to have a quick complimentary call and just really decide if the program may be right for you. I think that everyone's going to feel super connected with the person, that they really feel like they're going to make that transformation with. We're going to spend a lot of time together. We may as well get to know each other and like each other. So if you wanted to schedule some time, it's complimentary, just a small chat, just to make sure it's a good fit. And either way, I just wish you the best on your healing journey, and know that there's so many people out there with so many great stories about what is possible. So just grab hold of those stories and the possibility. I think that's where we all begin. Just like, this piqued my interest. I think this is really good. I think that this could be possible for me too.
Yeah, putting yourself out there, they can, looking on Instagram at what you put out, your website, you could get a feel for the person, and is this someone that you resonate with? So I love to listen to you. I love your accent. I love that. I know to you, I have an accent, but I love your accent. And I know that you come from a real heart-centered place in your work. I know that you do this to truly help women. This is a real passion of yours. And so that really shows in what you do.
Thank you,
So
Debbie. And I did not pick my accent, but thank you for that. And
I
yes,
love it. I love your,
I love the work. So thank you. This has been such a good time
yeah. So thank you
with you.
so much. Thanks for joining us. And I'll have some information at the on the show notes so women can find you that way as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Chelsie.
Thank you, Debbie.
If you'd like to learn more about Chelsie Ward, please follow the links in the show notes to learn more about her offerings and to set up a call if you'd like to work with her. Thank you so much for listening to Stronger Bones Lifestyle Podcast. Bone loss is not an inevitable part of aging. We don't have to just wait for it to happen. There is so much that you can do, and that is what you will learn each week on the show. Go to my website, DebiRobinson.com, if you want more information about what was shared in today's episode. At the bottom of this episode in the show notes, there will be links to whatever was shared. Please subscribe to this podcast, share this podcast with your friends, your family, or any women that you think may be interested or benefit from the information we're sharing. Please rate the podcast. And if you have any questions you'd like asked or answered, I would love to hear from you. Let's do this, ladies. Let's change the way the world views osteoporosis and slow down, stop, or reverse our bone loss, take charge, and show other ladies what is possible. Thank you so much for joining me.